Right, I got the short straw here. So you can either say that this is about facts and figures and sleep for a bit, or you can say this is about money and jobs and future wealth and perk up. I'm going to try and run through this quickly. There are a lot of bits and pieces of facts and figures. It's kind of hard subject to do, so bear with me. Hold on. Job creation. Right, Tamboran have said that they will create 600 jobs, 2,400 indirect jobs each side of the border. Now, as far as I can see, the indirect jobs figure is inaccurate, because the Scottish oil and gas figures that they use, they reckon that they would create 600 jobs, direct jobs, and 600 indirect jobs. Even the US, there's a report out, IHS report, November 11, very pro-industry, talking about creating millions of jobs. They say that based on 2010 figures, that 800 indirect jobs will be created by Tamboran. So that's significantly less than what Tamboran state. These indirect jobs are mainly in service industries. And one thing that Richard Moorman has been very, very adamant about is that those services and control of those services will be done by Tamboran. He announced that at a recent conference. Direct employment. This industry is not labour intensive. Also, the Northern Ireland briefing paper, this was a research paper after Tamboran's announcement. The one thing they said was there's no way to verify the figures for employment, and they believe that the 600 jobs were for the whole gas field, north and south. Here's a bit about direct employment from the States. For each $1 million investment in shale gas in the US, 3.7 jobs are created. But then if you put it into renewable energy, you can see an awful lot more are created. The other thing to think about is the skilled jobs. If I'm a gas rig worker, or if I'm an oil rig worker, and I'm working in the North Sea, Nigeria or Saudi Arabia, and I see a contract in Fermanagh or Leitrim, do you think I'm going to, where do you think I'm going to apply? There's East European labour that have a lot of experience working on gas rigs. The unskilled labour, most of the local jobs will be mainly unskilled labour. And unskilled labour can be mechanised and automated. Every time we bring up a problem with Tamboran, they point to something that's happening in the industry in the States. You know, when we talk about fracking with chemicals, they said, oh, we can do it without chemicals. Think about that in terms of indirect jobs, and think about that in terms of direct jobs and unskilled labour. If these guys are thinking about the whole chemical process, they're also thinking about the whole mechanisation and automation of all their monitoring. And the job creation is related to well count. This is what Moorman has said. So you will get more jobs, but you have to frack more. Simple equation. Although, remember as well that the economies of scale start to come in here. At a certain point, you won't be getting so many jobs per well. Now, how much gas is there? Well, nobody really knows. And that is the God's honest truth. You might as well pick a finger and put it in the air at the moment, because what Tamboran have said and they presented is that we know that this figure here, this is the pointer, TOC, total organic carbon. That is the figure, one of the figures that they look at to see how much hydrocarbons are in the shale. And we know from previous studies that this is quite low. That means that there might not be a huge amount of gas there. However, you know, if we look at what Tamboran has published, they produce quite large figures, but you also notice where those figures are based on. It's 200k acres, of shale, which is the 288,000 acres surface area that's needed. And so all these figures, what you find with Tamboran is they'll give one set of figures to government, one set of figures to us, and one set of figures to whoever else looks at them. The shale gas industry has claimed huge resources, but we've seen recently downgrades in all of them. So you can see there, US shale, largest deposit of shale in US downgraded by 80% January 2012. The Polish shale reserves downgraded by 85%, India shale 90%. August 2011, this was actually probably one of the biggest things, because the SEC are now getting involved with some of these shale gas companies because they've been misleading investors. And then if you look at Quadrilla, the UK, they claim 200 trillion cubic feet of gas, I think enough to supply the UK for about 20 years. But the British Geological Survey came along and said that at most there was 4.7 trillion cubic feet for the same resource, and they said that only about 5 to 15% of that 4.7 trillion cubic feet was recoverable. If you notice as well, the Tamboran's figures, they claim to top of the range, they claim about 15% recoverable. So what do we know as well? We know that this industry started about 2001, and so we haven't really seen a life cycle analysis of this industry at any point. And it's true also with the economics. What we have been trying to do, or what other investigators have done, is they've looked at the shale gas well performance from the older shales. And that's the Barnett, the Haynesville, and the Fayetteville. The Fayetteville is the shale that is most like where we live. And what we've seen is that the performance of these wells is nothing like what the industry are saying. They use stuff like decline curve patterns to present how these wells will continue to perform economically for 30 or 40 years. When in actual fact, what we're seeing now is almost all gas shale wells will be uneconomical after 15 years, some as low as 5 years. And what they also looked at was, well, are there any sweet spots, and does it differ? And again, they just saw that it was crucial, huge variation in the well performance even in sweet spot areas. So what that means is that if I drill in a field over there and get a good gas well, there is no guarantee that if I drill in the next field or next mile away, I'm going to get the same results.